Welcome back to Let's Make a Game, a channel about making computer role-playing games using the free program Twine and the Sugarcube format for Twine. In this video, I would like to continue talking about my current project of coding the combat system for a viewer's game. More specifically, I've been working through the special characteristics that some weapons have that the viewer whose game this is going to be wants me to add. And in this video, I'm going to talk about what I've done to the science gun. So here we have a combat which I've started. I looked in my inventory. I did have a science gun. Oops. And I put it into my, my hand, as you can see there. And I've attacked with it. And the special characteristic that it has is that if you hit with the science gun, the enemy that is hit has to make a roll, and if they fail the roll, as well as the damage, they are shocked, which means that they miss their next action. So it works very similar to the prone array and also the squick array, which we talked about in the last video. So here you can see that I roll, I hit, they take damage. That's all as it has been already, but this stuff is new. It says enemy 2 must roll to avoid shock. Enemy 2 rolls 2 and 3 plus their strong score of 2. For a total of 7, and that is just enough to succeed, and so it says that they shake off their shock. If they had failed the roll, then they would also miss their next turn. So let's have a look at the code that allows that to happen. So first of all, we need somewhere to store the fact that the enemy is going to miss their next turn, because that's a thing that doesn't happen straight away. So I could have extended the NME array, added another slot. NME Z6 might be the, might be that they missed their next turn because of shock. I decided instead to add another array that keeps track of the shock. I don't know which one's sort of overall better. Having it in NME would sort of have everything in one place. And make it less likely that you would miss a variable when we're converting or something like that. But having it as a named array allows me to give it a name that's a bit more descriptive than just NME Z6. I called it shocked, and it's pretty easy to remember. Oh yeah, that's to do with the shock that you get from being hit with a science gun. So there it is. For better or worse, that's what I chose. You could do either. And it's an array, and there's a little note here that it says it works identically to prone, but that it's for enemies hit by the science gun. Also works very similar to the squick array. So it happens in the same place we were in the last video, which is PC side attacks. We scroll down to where we had the code for the squick roll, which is down here within the bit of the code to do with if you hit. So we have if X, which is the text that describes which attack we're doing, if that equals chainsaw 1, then all this stuff happens. Sorry, down to here. And then we have an else if. Else if $x dot includes bracket quote science space gun end quote end bracket and NME Z2 is over 0. So what does that mean? Well, includes, when you have a variable and then dot includes and then a bracket and some text, it means what you might think, which is that if that text is somewhere within this variable. And the reason that I did it that way, rather than having an equal to, as I've done up here with the chainsaw one, is because there's more than one science gun attack. There's science gun 1 and science gun 2. So this covers both, because of course they both feature this sequence of text. I could have just said science, of course, because that's the science gun is the only weapon that has science in it. But either way. NME Z2, that is the hit points. So we only do this if the hit points are greater than 0, because if the hit points are not greater than 0. If they're 0 or less, then the enemy's dead. So there's no point rolling to avoid shock to see whether they're shocked or not. It doesn't really apply. They're not in the fight anymore. So we have a message. Enemy Z must roll to avoid shock. We have Y and X, which are the roll of 2 dice. We have W, which is their strong score. And then we have V, which is the total of all 3. This W is a bit complicated, so let's have a look at what that is. So we start with We start with, not happening today. We start with enemy Z1. Z is the target. Enemy Z1 is the type of the enemy. And then we look in that slot of enemy underscore ATT. And then the other dimension. Sorry, I did name again. So if enemy underscore ATT, the type of the enemy, and 1. Enemy underscore ATT is an array that keeps track of the attributes, also the number of attacks, but what we're concerned with at this point is the attributes of the different types of enemy. So slot it also has their name. Slot 0 is their name. Slot 1 is their strong score. These are their other 3 attributes. There's a similar array for player characters and companions, but it'll look at this one. So 1 for females, 1 for males, 2 for females, 1 for the pupae. Okay, so so this is the important thing. It's the roll of 2 dice plus their strong score, and then it just reports what happened. Enemy Z rolls X and Y, so it'll say 5 and 2 or 3 and 1 or whatever, plus their strong score of 1 or 2 for a total of whatever the total is. And in this case, we're not really concerned with long failures and long successes. We're just concerned with, did they get the target number of 7 or not? If V is less than 7, enemy Z is shocked, and we add 1 to shocked Z. Otherwise, they shake off their shock and nothing happens. In both cases, we put a couple of line breaks, so the line is by itself, which we also did for that. I forgot to mention that. But okay, so that's how we set up shocked. Now, when an array or when a variable is created, when an array is created, it doesn't put values in any of the slots of the array. It treats all of the slots as having a value of undefined, and if you increment by 1, that won't work properly. If you assume, well, it starts at 0, so we can just add 1 and make it 1. That's what plus means. It means add 1 to the current value. You'll get an error. So we need to set up all the slots in the shocked array with a value of 0, and we do that where we are. I think it's in here. No, hang on. Yeah, it should be up here. It should be in here. Sorry, drawn a blank. Yeah, this is where we're setting up the monsters. So we set up their hit points, etc. All of the different elements of the enemy array. We also set the relevant slot of the shocked array to be equal to 0 when we're first setting up the combat. So, okay, we've set up the shocked array. We can add 1 to it, but of course we also need to actually make that mean something, make the enemy miss a turn if they do have an entry in there. So we just do this here, and it's very similar to how prone works. We just say, if shocked INI underscore who, that stands for who has initiative. It's the currently acting character. In this case, if we're on this passage, it's an enemy. If that is greater than 0, then we say enemy INI who, so enemy 3 or whatever it might be, is still shocked from the science gun. and then we do the opposite of what we did before. We reduce their shocked value by 1, and then we include next action. So their action is wasted. Their action is spent being shocked, essentially, in the same way that if you're prone, if enemies can't be prone, if a player character or companion is prone, they spend an action getting up. And similarly, if they're squicked, they spend an action sort of being disgusted. They waste it in that way. Big difference here. Probably won't come up very much, but it is possible that the same enemy might be hit more than once by a science gun, by the same science gun, or by perhaps even 2 characters have a science gun. So you can have a shocked score of 2 or even 3, and in that case you would miss 2 or 3 turns, so it can sort of build up. Unlike being prone, there's no such thing as being knocked over and then sort of being doubly knocked over. Mechanically, it's just you're just knocked over, and so extra attacks that knock you over don't do anything. In this case, extra shocks will sort of make you more shocked, make the enemy more shocked. I thought that was more realistic, I guess. So yeah, it works slightly differently in that sense, although I guess it would be very rare for that to come up. But anyway, it can work. And that's what I've done. So I will end it there. I'm still sort of working through the weapons. That's probably what I'm going to be doing in the immediate future. I also still have to update the skill rolls. I know I mentioned that last video, but I still haven't done it. Update the skill rolls so that the less powerful NPC only personas work properly. But those are for future videos. I'll leave it there for now. I hope that was useful or interesting to at least some of you, and I hope you will tune in next time.